Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Enlevo seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. Powered by Soy Biodiesel, heading to the Mercer County Fair today for our next Axis Seeds check presentation for the Junior Fair Board there. Exports of U.S. pork bounced back in June, finishing the first half of 2025 on a high note, according to data released by USDA and compiled by the U.S. Meat Export Federation. Beef export volume was the lowest in 5 years, due in part to China's failure to renew restrictions for the vast majority of U.S. plants. Let's look into that a little further. June pork exports totaled 239,304 metric tons, up 7% from a year ago, while value increased 3.5% to $682.6 million. Export value to Mexico was the second highest on record at nearly $250 million, with shipments to Mexico, Central America, and Colombia remaining on a record pace. June exports also increased year over year to the Caribbean and Vietnam. Pork variety meat exports increased 10% from a year ago, due in part to rebound in shipments to China. On the beef side of things, beef exports totaled 93,928 metric tons in June, down 15% from a year ago, and the lowest since June of 2020. Export value was $769 million, down 18%, and the lowest in 17 months. Shipments to Korea and Mexico were steady with year-ago levels, while exports increased sharply to Central and South America, and variety meat demand strengthened in Egypt and in several emerging markets in Africa. But these gains did not fully offset the steep decline in exports to China and lower shipments to Japan. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Warm and dry weather for the finish of the week. However, we are a bit muggy across the region. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag weather update. I don't have any major changes for you here. Our forecast is definitely a warm and sticky one here in the short term. However, unlike yesterday where we had some pop-up scattered showers over the region, I think today is completely dry. Tomorrow looking the same, partly to mostly sunny, warm, and very muggy, but no new precipitation threats. The weekend stays dry both Saturday and Sunday. Going into next week, Monday continues the pattern. Very muggy, hot, and humid, but no precipitation. I think you get past midnight Monday night. That's when we finally see a frontal boundary to kick up and get on the move to our west. It brings rain and thunderstorms in for Tuesday afternoon, and it probably has a long tail into early Wednesday. Right now, I'm going to pencil in anywhere from 1/4 to 1 1/4 inches of precipitation with 90% coverage across the Buckeye State, so I think our coverage is better than what we've been seeing over the past few days. But behind that front, Wednesday's kind of mixed. We've got a mix of clouds and sunshine, may see a pop-up shower, a lingering shower in a couple of spots. But Thursday, Friday showing signs of getting into a cooler and less humid air mass coming out of Canada. If that's the case, it's going to be a very pleasant finish to the week next week, and our next round of thunderstorms likely holds off until Sunday, the 17th. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Brian. Let's check in with our weekly update from the Ohio Soybean Council and your checkoff dollars at work. Here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
Well, joining me today is Don Weiss. Don currently serves in multiple roles with the United Soybean Board as chair of the USB Audit and Evaluation Committee. He's also been very active in other committees. Don, a farmer in Northeast Indiana. Let's delve into some of your responsibilities there with USB, and one is chair of the Audit and Evaluation Committee. You know, really important as we look at the stewardship of farmers' checkoff dollars, dollars entrusted, which is nice to a board of farmer members to really decide how those are best spent.
Well, when you think about USB, you know, we're 77 farmer leaders strong in over 30 states across the United States, and our main goal is to bring additional value back to the soybean farmers in the United States. And we're doing that through a number of different projects in a number of different areas. But, you know, as chair of the A&E committee, you know, it's important, and that's what our committee does. And I have a great committee that is just continuing to look at, are those projects the best places to be spending that checkoff dollar, and is it giving us the best rate of return? So happy to say that overall, the results speak for themselves. We continue to see projects that bring value back to the U.S. soybean farm, and excited to be a part of that.
Well, again, my guest today is Don Weiss. He currently serves as chair of the USB Audit and Evaluation Committee and a number of other leadership positions along the way, a farmer from Northeast Indiana. Don, thanks so much for your time. Keep up the great work.
Thank you very much, and have a great day.
And today's update is brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff.
And thanks, Dusty. Back with more after this.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals, your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
Tuesday, August 12th is the day to be in Fayette County for the Southwest Ohio Corn Growers Agronomy Field Day, beginning at 9 a.m. at the Fayette County Airport, Washington Courthouse. Hear from experts like Aaron Wilson, Scott Shear, Rodrigo Worley, Emma Matcham, Tad Nicholson, Mitchell Feeney, and Wendy Osborne on the latest in ag weather, weeds, cover crops, and more. Enjoy free breakfast and lunch, plus a chance to win one of two $500 gift cards for Corn Growers members. Details can be found at fayette.osu.edu.
Dale, the Ohio Crop Tour 2025 has wrapped up with 2 big days of scouting all across northern and southern Ohio. 2 great teams set out across a number of different counties. Joining me now is Scott Chalfin. Scott is a farmer from Sandusky County, also a retired agronomist. Scott, we saw a lot of different things, but probably about as noteworthy as what we saw was some of the things we didn't see. Tell me a little bit about some of the things you saw the last 2 days.
Well, one of the things I saw is that the soybean, we looked mainly at soybeans in our area, just how consistent they were no matter when they were planted. They were all looking to be 60-plus bushel soybeans. A lot of it depends on what kind of weather we're going to get from here moving forward, especially for those late May, early June planted soybeans. They were clean. There was really no disease pressure at all in them. Even the ones that weren't sprayed with fungicides seemed to be clean. No insect pressure. I didn't scout any of the corn, but listening to the guys that scouted some of the corn were saying the same things. There just wasn't much tar spot out there. A little bit of gray leaf, a little bit of northern corn leaf blight. We did happen to see a little bit of pollination issues in a couple fields. We noticed that today, and we saw some tassel wrap today also. So the situation that we've been hearing about is real. Didn't seem to be very common, but we did see some, and there was some issues there. So overall, it looks to be a great opportunity for really good yields this year in corn and soybeans.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. We got the numbers from USDA National Ag Statistics Service that everything seems to be online with the 5-year average as far as maturity and development. I think what we saw in a lot of fields was the fact that we had a lot of variety of planting dates, and the crop reflected that. But with that said, it's amazing how much the later planted stuff has really progressed and caught up with some of the earlier planted stuff, especially in soybeans.
Yep. It's just amazing to see how this crop has taken off and grown over the last month and a half. We've had good rains, some places a little too much rain, but overall the crop health and the crop growth and the maturity at this point in time in the game looks fantastic.
So there's definitely fields out there, some tough fields out there that we saw. We weren't necessarily in them, but we crisscrossed a lot of counties and a lot of miles and highway windshield scouting, if you will. So we did see that tough stuff out there, but most of the fields that we were in, both corn and soybeans, looked very good. And a lot of those numbers, I think, that we're hearing in the forecast from USDA, from StoneX, while they may seem a little high, the potential is there. And I guess that's the other thing we saw is being as early in August as we are, and especially with some of the later planting dates, there's a lot of sort of guessing, if you were guesstimating what's that crop going to do, as you said, depending on the weather. What does August bring? We know August rains make soybeans. We know the temperature and moisture really impacts what that pollination is going to do and how it affects the corn. One thing, though, probably not necessarily on the crop side, but an observation that we talked about a couple of times is the emergence of some weed issues. And this is the time of year we typically see those weed outbreaks.
Yeah, there was one thing that really astounded or really surprised me this year, and you hear all about it all the time. We've been warned about it for years, but the water hemp issue, I haven't seen a lot. There's some around home, but just to drive around the state like we did the last couple of days, every time you turn around, you were seeing water hemp and some pretty good size water hemps that were out there in those fields. Guys that already sprayed them, it didn't even hardly touch them. And that's going to be a real issue moving forward. We're going to have to start really trying to be diligent in the things that we're doing, because it's not going to get any better. There's going to be a lot of issues with that weed moving forward. We also I saw anyways, a fair amount of giant ragweed also, and that's been an issue for years. It's really a tough weed to control, but those two particular weeds are going to be a challenge for us.
Definitely great observations. Well, you can find out more about the different observations that we had checking out the articles that we have posted at ohioagnet.com and ocj.com. There's one both for the North Leg and the South Leg. Both days information, every county we visited, pictures not only of the corn and soybeans, but if we found some interesting things on the leaves, insects, the tassel wrap that we referred to, pictures of all that, what our yield estimates are going forward. And of course, you can check out some of the videos on social media. We'll have a podcast coming out as well. We want to give a special thanks to all the scouts that went out with us, the farmers that let us stop and check out their fields and provide the information that we needed. And, of course, to the Ohio Soybean Council and your checkoff dollars making this all possible.
Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. For marketing information of your beans to LDC, call 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets weaker again on Wednesday trade at midweek, and it was pretty much all about supply, but there's a little demand in here as well. A record large U.S. corn and soybean yield potential amid Chinese demand concerns was the main reason we saw these markets not do a whole lot on Wednesday. Kansas City wheat caught a little bit of a bid on talk of Russian wheat logistical and quality concerns, but Chicago wheat futures did set new contract lows yesterday. Chart support is now offered below $5 a spot on Chicago futures. The sheer size of U.S. corn and soybeans crops are going to be keeping SR wheat futures under pressure going forward. December corn has fallen down under $4. December Chicago wheat to $5.25. November soybeans to $9.80 or so. The November futures close yesterday was very important. The market is looking at $9.80 as very key support in the November futures, so we'll have to see how we come out of the Wednesday trade today. Do we do more damage to the downside, or do we try and bounce a little bit? The market feels very heavy. Fund managers are willing to add to their net short on bearish charts and the monstrous crop. However, a lot of market analysts and advisors are saying, hey, we're trying to carve out a bottom. I don't know. 385 to 4 could be a December target on corn. 955 to 960 on November beans. We'll see if and when we try and get there. Brokers report that fund managers sold 1,200 contracts of wheat yesterday, 7,000 contracts of corn, 6,400 contracts of beans. President Trump did impose an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods yesterday, citing India's ongoing import of Russian oil. The new Indian tariffs have soybean traders wondering if a like tariff will be applied to China before the end of the week. China is Russia's largest oil importer. India is now facing a collective tariff rate of 50%. A U.S. tariff rate on China is currently 55%. So this is something to watch as we finish out the week. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight at the open, September corn up 2 1/4 at $3.82. December up 2 1/4 at $4.03 and March up 2 at $4.21 1/4. All the beans had been higher. Now August is unchanged at $9.61 1/2. November up 1 1/4 at $9.85 3/4, and March up 3/4 at $10.21. September wheat up 1 3/4 at $5.10 1/4. December up 1 3/4 at $5.31. Carry it clear to March. You're up 1 1/4 at $5.49 3/4. In livestock, at yesterday's close, August cattle up $2.02, bringing it to $236.30. October up $2.55, bringing it to $229.65. Hogs were mixed, with August a dime higher at $108.87. October down 82 cents at $91.97. September feeder cattle up $4.67 to $344.22. October up $4.57 at $342.40, and November up $4.52 at $340.15. This is the Ohio AgNet.